Hello, this video is based on a question we get asked quite a lot by new and emerging artists. In fact, an awful lot. And that is, how often should you be releasing new music? Now, as a general rule, we like to advise between 6, 7 and the top 8 weeks between releases. And let's break down some of the reasons why we suggest 6, 7, 8 weeks. First of all, it's building momentum. Now, it's really important that when you start releasing music, you have that consistency, because it allows you over that time to be consistently in the sphere of discoverability by your audience, by your listeners, by your emerging fans and community, by certain facets of the industry. And all of those things combined help to start solidify and cement the intention behind the fact you are an artist with purpose. You're not just releasing one single and then disappearing for 3, 4, 5, 6 months and then, oh, look, here's another single. It doesn't really work because you can't build momentum. So the first thing, 6, 7 weeks between release, that momentum. And conversely, if you're thinking, well, actually, if I want to build momentum, why don't I release a song every month, every 4 weeks? Well, that has the opposite effect. Yes, it does give a bit of momentum over the first, let's say, 3 releases. But actually, what you end up doing is over-delivering. You kind of saturate your growing audience to the point where they're kind of not interested quite quickly in your new music coming out, because it seems they've got such a cascade of new musical content that's being driven to them that they never quite know where they are in your release campaign and the pathway you're pursuing of releasing your music, building an audience, connecting with them, transitioning into fans. So the danger of a track every 4 weeks, it's too much. And actually, a particularly interesting element of that over delivery is when you just take the industry sphere. For example, let's say we'll just take radio. Let's say, I don't know, 3 weeks, 4 weeks before your release, you're going to send your track to a variety of radio stations. Try to get some early radio support, still important radio. And let's say, because everybody in the industry is either busy or very good at telling themselves they're busy, don't respond to email straight away. It's a thing, trust me. So you need to follow up on that initial email. Let's say you give them a week and you politely follow up. So it's 3 weeks outside of your release. They still haven't responded. You need to follow up again a week later. There's 2 weeks before your release. They might respond. But then after the release, if your next single was releasing in 4 weeks' time, that only really gives you a break of 2 or 3 weeks before you're emailing them again about the next single and following up. And then the next single, you'll end up bombarding them with emails. And trust me, after a while, short while, that will really frustrate and annoy them. And that is not a good foot to be stood on when we think about building relationships with industry. Another reason why that 6, 7, 8 week window between releases is really important is because it kind of forces you in a way to preference quality over quantity. If you were to release a track every month, that's 12 tracks in a year. And with the most beautiful, greatest respect, it's unlikely for a new artist, purely by the definition of time and development, that you're going to have 12 incredibly strong singles dropping every month that's going to do some good business for you. So if you actually break that into every 6, 7, 8 weeks, it means that you're kind of forced to curate, to A&R your music, your singles a lot more intentionally, a lot more accurately, and with a lens of quality control over it, which means the 6 singles that you release across the year, 5 or 6 singles, they are going to be, or a lot more likely to be, stronger than that higher frequency, the 12 singles. So again, 6-7 weeks, it's going to force you to really have that intention of only releasing great music, and it's great music that's going to convey how good an artist you are, how interesting you are, how engaging you can be. Really important. And I think adjacent to that is the content element as well. If you're releasing 12 singles, then that needs to be a content plan for 12 singles. That might be a visualizer, artwork, live small videos around it for content. It could be anything in content wise, but you're actually having to create an awful lot more transient content, because as soon as you do one single bit of content, oh my god, you're on to the next one, bit of content, oh my god, you're on to the next. It's too hectic. It's actually too hectic. So again, that quality control suffers. Tends to be that the content you put out is rushed, doesn't really convey the message in the way you want it to convey. The intention gets a bit like, all those things start to erode a little bit. So again, it supports back to the 6, 7, 8 week gap. Really important. And if we actually take the other end of the scale, so to speak, if you're releasing music beyond that 8, 9, 10 weeks even, then you've almost got, well, not know, but you've got such a little chance of starting to genuinely influence algorithms. I mean, particularly with DSPs, particularly with Spotify. If you haven't got that regularity without over delivering, as we've talked about, that regularity of releases, it's got a lot more chance of triggering algorithms, but also having the effect of, if your latest single is doing its business and you've got other music out that has also had that solid lead time, which means you've created a good campaign around it, then the latest single starts to bleed into the other singles and they start to keep trickling up their stream numbers. So if you compound this, it becomes a very useful tool to have that consistency, but not over delivering, of music. If you're releasing a track every 4 months, which some artists do, and we get it, no shade thrown at you, it's tough. But if you have patience and don't just release one every 4 or 5 months, you're going to have that chance to build some momentum. You're going to have that chance to influence some algorithms. You're going to have that chance of sustained awareness and discoverability within those kind of areas, industry, listeners, fan base that we're trying to connect with and be meaningful with and influence. Another area I'd like to discuss is actually the data that you get back from a release campaign around a single. Back to what I was saying, if you over deliver a single every 4 weeks, one a month, it's not impossible, but it becomes incredibly tricky as that compounds to get a true idea of what growth, of what interaction, of what engagement, of what data a single has achieved for you in part of your release campaign. Because too much music released too often just blurs the line. You don't really get a sense truly of what each single has done for you. So then you can't really extract what's working for you. And it's the same on the content side of supporting that release campaign per single. If you've got loads of singles and lots of rushed content, it's really hard to fathom, not even fathom, to calculate, to analyze what content works with the audience that you are starting to engage with. And that engagement then leads to you being able to prick out what's relevant, who are your relevant audience. So having that space gives you a lot more opportunity to really see what works. And that is part of the point of this, is to develop, to evolve, to refine. So having that data, that information is massively important. Again, it just supports this do not over deliver. And equally, don't under deliver. Don't 2 singles a year. Again, mentioned it earlier. It's the same thing. You won't have enough data at that point to really see what's connecting, what's resonating, what's being shared, what's being viewed, what's being engaged with. So that window again, one single every 6, 7, 8 kind of isn't a long term, but 6 or 7 weeks is really the primary kind of gold moment of releasing singles. Another key and often overlooked element of this discussion is actually how you're presenting yourself to potential opportunities. Again, maybe particularly in the industry side of things. So, what do I mean by that? Well, if you can present that you've released 6 singles and you can chart out what they've done, you can be very clear and concise and direct in the communication about the achievements, the growth, the connections, the opportunities that each one, all of them as a body, have achieved. That is incredibly useful. Trust me, that's massively useful, particularly when we're talking to managers, lawyers, labels, publishers even. Really useful. If you've got so much music released that you can't really concisely say what has achieved different things, it's tough. It's tough. And also, what are you going to do? You're going to send 12 singles? I mean, that's an album fundamentally. 12 pieces of music released in a year and try and say everything that's been achieved by each one. It's really tricky. And even that is over delivering on the information. It's really hard to be clear, concise, direct when you've kind of got too much going on, which might sound counterintuitive, but it's good to have a lot of stuff going on across a lot of different areas: live, sync, DSPs, merch, forums and groups and community, all that. But if it's all based on, listen to 12 singles that I've released, it's, they're all great. Are they really all great? Have they already achieved the different things that, have fed into your story growth as an artist? Probably not. So even having that kind of more understandable, concise and focused approach is so much more beneficial and it's useful. And I think that's a really undervalued point that we miss in a lot of artist development. So think about the presentation of you and your achievements, your direction, your plot, your growth.